Tonight, I'm excited because we're starting a brand new series called Fortified. And in this series, what we're going to be doing is we're going to look at the things in church and in your walk with God that maybe we talk about a lot, but if we're honest, some of us in the room, we may still have questions about. Like it's like if remember in class, maybe you're in a difficult math class or something, and the teacher probably went a little bit too fast over a concept, and you were probably a little bit too embarrassed to raise your hand and say I have no idea what you're talking about, so you just kind of keep your mouth shut, and then you keep going, and then it just kind of piles on and piles on. You're like, I have no idea what's going on, and then you get to the end, towards the end of the class, and you're just hoping no one calls on you. Am I the only one who's ever done that? I've had a math class before where I've just I have no idea what's happening, and we're at the end of the semester, and I'm about to die. But maybe that has been the case for some of you, or you're I just don't know exactly. I missed something, and I don't exactly know what to do. I'm too embarrassed to maybe ask or kind of do the work internally to figure out what does this actually mean. And I don't know, I hope you haven't experienced that. A lot of you guys seem pretty smart. I'm kind of dumb in a lot of areas, so it makes sense for me. But maybe for some of you, that's just not something that happened in a class that you took in high school or college. Maybe for some of you, that's something that's happened in your spiritual life. Maybe we've gone over something in church, or maybe you've heard something about God or having a relationship with Him, and maybe it's something we talk about a lot, and a lot of people assume that you know exactly what that means, but then you're I don't kind of know, and then you're too scared or whatever to raise your hand and say, what are we talking about? And you just kind of keep going, and you realize that there's a couple foundational aspects about your Christian life that you don't really totally know if you know for sure. Maybe you do, kind of. And sometimes when this happens, this actually stops us from taking our next step with God, because maybe we don't exactly know what we need to take. And sometimes this will actually stunt us spiritually. Maybe you're in here and you feel you've kind of been on the same level spiritually. You haven't really taken any steps forward. You kind of just been living on the same thing for a while. There have been seasons in my life where I'm just gosh, I feel I just haven't grown. I feel I haven't moved. I feel I haven't, whatever. And maybe for you, if that's the case, maybe it's because you haven't figured out some of the foundational things that God is inviting us to. And so in this series, we just want to talk about some of those things. And my hope for all of you in here today, my hope for every single one of you, is to experience and understand and be transformed by God. For you to actually know more about God, for you to actually invite God to be more about in your life, for you to actually step out and obey Him. And when that happens, you actually get to experience a lot of purpose. Maybe you're here today and you need purpose in your life. If you do this, you'll experience direction that only God can give you in certain seasons of life. If you do this, you can actually experience freedom from things that you never thought you'd be free from. And when you do this, you actually get to experience a joy that's so much more powerful than the thing that you're going through right now. It's amazing. But so often, we miss it. And if you want to see that, if you want that list to be something that describes you, here's what you need to do. You actually have to be brave enough to be you know what? I don't think I understand that. Some of these core concepts about Christianity, my faith, all this stuff, I've been in church for a long time. This may seem embarrassing, but I don't think I've ever done that totally. Or I don't think I've ever taken that step. And I promise you, if you do this, if you actually shake off your pride enough to have the humility to be can you explain this a little bit more to me? Do you know that the Lord is so happy? Because God doesn't want to bless who you pretend to be. God only can bless who you are. And so often we come in, we put on these masks, and we're hey, I'm good, brother. How you doing today? Oh, I'm good. And God's I don't care about that. I care about you. And when you only put up what you want people to see about you, what happens is the real you kind of starts to crumble. And it's not a foundation that you can set your life on. And so at the end of every message in this series, what I want to do for every single one of you is give you an opportunity, and I'm going to ask you, what's your next step? What's the thing that you need to do after hearing this, that you need to step out in faith and obey God in? And listen, I told some of our team this earlier. My whole dream and vision of this group, this young adults community, I don't really care if we have a lot of people come. I don't really care if just having a bunch of people show up on Tuesdays. Sure, that's fun. But what I want to experience, I want to see individual revivals going on in their heart. I want to see you actually not just come in here and do the motions of following God. I want you to actually see the power of following God and how that transforms you and shapes you and molds you and empowers you. This is possible. But it's only possible if you do the basic stuff. If you do the stuff that God has called you to do. So my message tonight is called The Question That Demands an Answer. A question that demands an answer. I told you I was going to tell you about a really bad Valentine's Day, so I'm going to tell you about it. It's Valentine's Day. I just want to get it out there. My wife, Kyla, and I, we celebrated Valentine's early, so get off my back, people. We had a great time. And, I didn't date much before Kyla. Not personal choice, it just didn't happen for me. And I didn't really date very many people. There's one time where I was dating somebody, and it happened to be right around Valentine's Day. And this leads us into the Valentine's Day massacre of 2014. And here's what happened. I met this girl at church, and she was a really great girl, loved the Lord. I asked her out, and we started going out. And, it's kind of easy when you look back on something to kind of see, the clarity of, what was really going on. And what I realized looking back now on this relationship is that I just wasn't, really interested, as bad as that sounds. Give me grace, people, in this story. I'm not going to come out looking awesome, all right? And I just realized, I would hang out with her, but I wouldn't really think about her outside of us hanging out, and I didn't really care to schedule more dates and stuff. And it was just one of those things. There was no reason to not. She was very nice, and there was no reason to break up with her or anything. But it just I didn't have that spark. I didn't really have that. It's again, guys. Some of you are looking at me, and it's just I recognize I'm going to take it all because this is horrible. But she was a really, really great person. And so which brings us to Valentine's Day. She told me, she's like, hey, my roommate and I want to plan a double date Valentine's Day for her boyfriend and you, and it's going to be really fun. We're going to go all out. I'm like, awesome. Don't have to plan Valentine's Day. And you see where I'm going with this. And here's what happened. That was on a Saturday. Valentine's Day that year was on a Friday. Okay? And so I'm just kind of going about my week, just chilling because my girlfriend was planning Valentine's Day. And Valentine's Day, the Friday comes, and, I decided to work a little bit late at church, and so I get home around 7 o'clock, and I walk in the door, and my whole family is, eating dinner, and they all look at me like I committed a crime. They're just like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, I'm here to get some dinner, I don't know what you guys are talking about. And they're just, how many guys have family that kind of help you understand some things when you don't totally get some things, My family, all my 3 sisters and my parents were like, what are you doing, dude? You've got to call her. You got to do something. You got to figure something out. I'm like, no, it's cool. She's planning something for Saturday, so I'm good. They're like, no, that is not good. We got to figure something out. And so my parents are starting to raise the alarms. I'm like, am I wrong? And then all of a sudden I get a text. My phone buzzes, and I get a text message from this girl, and it read, I really wish I could have seen you today. And I was like, DEFCON 5, people, we gotta go. We gotta figure some stuff out. So my sister and my dad, they jump in the car. We drive to Walmart. It's 7 p.m. on the Friday of Valentine's Day. There are no flowers left. And so what I do is I go to the home and garden section of Walmart, and I get a potted plant. I just grabbed the first alive plant that I saw, And I'm like, this will work. I grabbed some candies, and like I text her, I'm like, hey, do you want to, can I pick you up and hang? Like I've been planning this the whole time. And she's like, I'm hanging out with like a group of friends. You can pick me up at their house if you want. So I'm like, cool. All right, I'm going to go. And so I go over to this house I've never been to. And they have this like big window in the living room. And what I saw when I pulled in, I saw 15 girls just in this living room. I don't know if you've ever been around 15 girls when one of their boyfriends did something stupid. It's not a safe place. And I'm like walking up, and I see, and it's just like these eyes just following me, glaring into my soul. And I'm like, hey, how's it going? Ringing the doorbell, like, you see me? It's like really awkward. And so she like comes in, I'm like, hey, how's it going? And then we get into the car, and I'm like, got you a potted plant? And she just breaks down and starts to cry. And she says things like, man, I just feel like you're not really in this relationship. Like, she's like, no, this isn't a big deal, but why aren't we Facebook official? Like, I know it's stupid for me to ask for that. Like, why aren't we? I'm like, I thought we were kind of cool. Like, not, it was like a horrible, horrible thing. And I remember feeling like so sad that I made this person feel this way. And I just remember thinking like, gosh, you're so right. Like, you're right. Everything that you've said, like, you're right about. And in that moment, I realized, I'm like, I don't feel as if she deserves this. Like, this is just like I put her in a really difficult situation, and she felt like, and I felt like I was living in this limbo land and didn't know if I really wanted, like, to keep this thing going. And it was kind of this half-hearted relationship, and it was hurting her, and it was frustrating me, and it was just this horrible situation. So like, she's crying, I'm driving the car, and we get to the restaurant. The restaurant's full, and so I'm like, we can go to another place. And she goes, can you just take me home? And I'm like, yeah, I'll take you home. And I drive her home, and then I go back to my house, and as I do, I talk with my mom for a long time, and I realize, I'm like, gosh, like she deserves something better. Like, I think I need to break up with her. So I waited a couple days, guys. I didn't break up with her that night, and we broke up. And here's the thing, like, I was unsure about where I stood with her. Like, I was unsure about, like, I was kind of in it, I was kind of not. I was in it when I was there. I was like happy and it was fun, but like, I didn't like think about it. Like, it wasn't really like a part of something that like I was just really, really all about. And I don't know if you've ever been in a relationship where you felt like unsure about where the other person stood with you. Have you ever felt like that? You're like, what are we? Like, are we, like, what's happening? Maybe it's like a dating relationship. Maybe it's like a friendship with someone. You're like, man, I don't know if you like me or not. Like, are we frenemies? What's happening? And maybe you've had this with a family member. And listen, some of you actually may even feel that with God, where you're like, okay, what are we, God? Like, are you mad at me? Like, are you real? Like, what? I mean, I'm kind of going to church. I'm doing some stuff, but like, I just don't know exactly. Like, if you ask me, like, are you Christian? Probably, yeah, I'm a Christian. But I just don't. Maybe, kind of, probably. I think so. Maybe not. I don't know. And there's like this fuzziness and there's this haziness that you may have in a relationship with God. And the question that demands a response for you tonight is actually the most important question that you can ever answer in your life. Because this question determines everything. This question is the question that if you answer correctly, it could actually bring you joy. It could bring you freedom from sin. It could bring you purpose. It could bring you life. It could bring you salvation. It's the question that we all have to ask. But before I can tell you that question that we're going to answer really soon, there's a first question that you have to know before you can answer the second question. And the first question that you need to ask yourself is this: where does Jesus stand with me? Where does Jesus stand with me? Because just like in a relationship, it's kind of like this twofold part. Like, there's two people. And in order for a successful relationship to happen, you have to have two parties in the same direction. But sometimes we can look at God and be like, God, I don't know where you stand with me. Like, I don't know where you're at with me. And so the question is tonight, where does Jesus stand with you? Can I tell you? Maybe you're in here and you think that Jesus doesn't like you. Or you feel like, he's okay with you. He's not thrilled with you. Let me just tell you what Jesus thinks about you. In the beginning, the book of Genesis, it says that God actually created you. He created human beings, and he didn't create them in the similar way he's created all the other animals and all the other created things. He actually set people apart. And what he did was incredible. Listen to this. The creator of the universe, the God of heaven and earth, he put his identity, he put his name on you. It's this term called the Imago Dei, which means the image of God. As you live and breathe today, you are all image bearers of God. You have the image, you have the value and the image of God on you. That's why we believe that life is sacred. That's why we believe everybody is important. That's why we hate racism. That's why we hate abortion. That's why we hate anything that deters anybody from having less value than anybody else, because you have the image of God on you. God didn't have to do that, but he decided to put the image of God on you. You know that God, he actually says that he knit you together in your mother's womb. In Psalms 139, it says, I knit you together in your mother's womb. Sometimes, I'm having a baby next month, and it's in this incredible process, like how the body is kind of working together to create this life. And, do you know that science does not create this baby? The Lord is knitting together my new daughter in Kyla's womb, and it's this beautiful, beautiful thing. That means that you were actually made for a purpose, with a purpose and for a purpose. There are no accidental children. Maybe you feel like maybe your parents told you were the accident, You weren't. God knew it. God knit you together. It says also in Psalms that, this is crazy, guys, or it says in Matthew chapter 10, Jesus knows the amount of hairs that are on your head. Like, he knows you infinitely well to where he knows the amount of individual hair particles that you have on your head. I know Kyla, my wife, pretty well. We're getting pretty serious as a couple. But the second kid's really doing it. I don't know how many pieces of hair that she has on her head. It was easy when Eleanor, my first baby, was bald. We can kind of figure that out. But she had her first haircut. So cute, guys. I got to show you the pictures later. It's amazing. But God, he knows you so well. Again, keep in mind, the creator of the heaven and the earth, the universe, who holds all things together, he actually knows you. He pursues you to the point where he knows how many pieces of hair are on your head. That's closeness. That's closeness. We rebelled against God. We worshiped other things. We all have done things that we're not proud of. We've sinned against God, and sin is just anything that separates us from God. And when you choose to sin, the end result of sin is always death. And so we have this problem because God, who wants to be so close to us, who knows us so well, who actually created us to be close to him, he put his image on us. We have ruined it. We've worshipped other gods. We've worshipped sex and pleasure and money and success and ourselves and anything else that we can find. Like, our hearts are like idol factories where we just figure out what's good, we'll make it a god, we'll just worship that. And we have rejected God totally. But God was not satisfied to keep us separated because God is so holy and righteous, and he can't let any unholiness in a sight, just like when you turn a light on a dark room, the darkness is overcome with light, and you overcome with that. And so just like we can't be in the presence of God without being overcome with his holiness, there is a gap there. And God was not satisfied that there was a gap there. And it says this in Romans 6:23, it says, for the wages of sin is death. The reason there is a gap between you and God, the reason you may feel like you're separated from God, is because you are. It's because you were. Like, the sin in your life actually stopped you from being close with God. And just like the wages of sin is death. You know what a wage is? A wage is something that you earn. You work a job to get wages. And when you work for sin, you get death. And this is not just like a physical death that you have here on earth. This is like an eternal death. Like a death is like separated from God forever. But God did not want this to stay this way. Because remember, you're His. He has His image on you. And so what God did in the second part of this verse is He sent Jesus. If the wages of sin is death, then the free gift of God is what? Eternal life. How? Through Christ Jesus our Lord. Like you work for sin to get a wage. What is a gift? A gift is something that you just receive. You can either receive a gift or you don't receive a gift. And God is offering, because of what Jesus did, God sent Jesus to become a man, to live the life that we couldn't live, to die the death that we deserved. The stuff that separates us from God, it had to be paid for. It had to be dealt with. And Jesus said, I'll take it. I'll take it for you so that you can have connection with God again. And he sent His Son, Jesus. Listen, I love so many people in this room. I love all you guys, like even people I don't know very well, like just as a brother or sister in Christ. I love you guys. But I would not sacrifice Eleanor, my daughter, for you. Like I just couldn't do it. Like I wouldn't be able to do it. But God, He sacrificed His Son, Jesus, for us. Like this... Are you kidding me? This is unbelievable. This is the God that we serve. Jesus was sent to rescue us. God so loved the world that He gave His one and only Son, that whosoever believes in Him would not perish, but have everlasting life. Do you know where Jesus stands with you? Do you know where Jesus is at with you in your relationship with Him? He's so for you. He so wants to have a relationship with you that He paid the ultimate price for you. He paid the ultimate price for you. He died for you. He lives to bring you life. And the goal to get connected to God forever in heaven is possible because of what Jesus did for you. That barrier of sin that separated you is gone now, for those of you who've accepted this free gift of God. And now, Jesus did that 2,000 years ago. Now, He stands at the door knocking at every single one of you. He's like, listen, this is what I did. This is history. This actually happened. But now the opportunity is extending an invitation to you to be able to accept this gift or not. Do you know how God feels about you now? Do you realize like where you stand with God? Like if someone was doing what Jesus did for you, there would be no question if they loved you, right? There'd be no question where they stood in this relationship. But some of us actually have this false idea of what maybe Jesus doesn't like me. Maybe I don't even know that. Like, how could God even love me? How could God even like me? How could God even save me? I've done some stuff. And when I was thinking about this, it reminded me of one of my favorite Jimmy Fallon clips. And I got to set this up for you real quick, okay? A couple years ago, Jimmy Fallon on The Tonight Show, he had Nicole Kidman on his show. And if you guys are like a little bit too young to know who Nicole Kidman is, Nicole Kidman was like the it girl in like the 90s and 2000s. Like in 2002, they're going to talk about a story that happened in 2002. In 2002, she was voted like, most beautiful woman, on the planet or something. And this is like at the height of Nicole Kidman's career. Jimmy Fallon was like this, kind of lower-level famous person working at Saturday Night Live, and they come together to tell this amazing story. So check out the screens. This is a hilarious thing. Guys, Jimmy Fallon, the lower-level, like SNL employee, missed out on dating 2002's most beautiful person of the year because he thought there was like no chance. He's like, why would I even think about this? There's no chance. Why would I even flirt with her? Why would I even ask her out? Because there's no way that she would actually think this about me. And he missed out on dating Nicole Kidman because it just wasn't even in his like a brain of like as a possibility for us. And like, listen, some of you may be in here and you may look at God and say, there's no way. Why would God like me? Why would God pursue me? Why would God want to be in a relationship with me? And listen, what I don't want you to do is that go the whole life, your whole life of you thinking this, and at the end of your life, you realize, you have one of these moments where you're like, God loves me? The God of the creator and the head of the user, like that God, like who's so far above me, who's so much better than me, that God, that's the God who loves me? And listen, I want you to be actually able to get to the end of your life and say, God, thank you for loving me. I was so lowly. I was like dirt. I was nothing. I was sinful. I rejected you, but you picked me up. You loved me. God, He's not uncertain about you. He knows who you are. He knows what you've done, and yet still, He's coming over and saying, hey, how you doing? You want to talk? You want to begin a relationship? Can I be with you? Can I save you? Can I give you this joy and this peace and this purpose that you're looking for? So the question is, where does Jesus stand with you? He's for you and He wants you. But the question, the most important question of all time that you can ask yourself is, where do you stand with Jesus? If Jesus is for you, where do you stand with Him? And this is not the question, do you know about Jesus? Because a lot of people know about Jesus. We know that Jesus was a human who actually lived. And based on all the data and the historical records that we found, He actually did die and He actually did raise to life again. But there's a difference between knowing about Jesus and accepting the offer of Jesus. So, where do you stand with Jesus? You know, you can miss Jesus in two ways. The first way that you can miss Jesus is to think that you're too bad for Jesus. These are the people who's like, I'm never going to come to church, or maybe you're in here and like you barely made it, or whatever, and you're like, these are the people who think they've done too much wrong, or they would say like, God would never accept me, I'm too bad. This is the kind of person who, when someone else starts talking about God, they just kind of like put their head down in shame and they don't know what to do. And you can miss Jesus by misdiagnosing where He is with you. But there's another way that you can miss Jesus, and by thinking that you are too good for Jesus. Like you don't need Jesus. Like, these are the type of people who like volunteer at homeless shelters all the time. They are very loving people. They give to charity. You know, they're good people, and they think that I don't need Jesus because I'm a good person. Like I kind of I'm not like these other people. I get why Jesus is good for people who are like drug addicts who are trying to get off the street, and they're people who've like wrecked their lives. But my life is pretty good, and some people be like, I don't need Jesus because I'm doing it pretty well myself. And listen, those are on the two opposite ends of the spectrum, but really they're two sides of the same coin. You miss Jesus either way. You can miss Jesus because you think you're too bad, or you can miss Jesus because you think you're too good. Both cause you to miss Jesus, to miss God. And it will funnel you away from God in heaven forever. Because you know how to get Jesus. You know how to get to heaven. Heaven is not filled with good people. Heaven is filled with forgiven people. It's the only way. You know, for you, if I were to ask you in like a moment of like radical honesty with yourself, like on a scale of 1 to 10, how sure, if you died tonight, if you would go to heaven, where would you be? Really, just like take a second to think, like on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being like you're totally sure that you would go to heaven if you die, 1 being I'm not sure at all. Where would you be on that spectrum? Where would you be? Think about it. And to be fair, I'm just going to ask everyone to bow their heads real quick, close their eyes, and I just want to get a kind of taste of the room, and no one looking around. Like if you're looking around, you're going to come up here with me. But no one looking around, like just if you kind of landed, if you kind of self-diagnosed in the 1 to 6 category, just raise your hand. You're like, I'm not really sure. I don't really know what's going on. Maybe for you, maybe this next one, maybe you identify, these are the people who identified in the 6, 7, 8. Raise your hand if you feel like you're kind of in that 6, 7, 8. You're like, I'm not so bad. I'm not so good. I'm kind of in a couple different places. Maybe you're in here, the next person, next category. Maybe you're a 9. How many 9s do we have right now? People are like, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure where I'm at. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. You can open up your eyes again. Thanks so much for your honesty. As I was thinking about this whole idea, I thought of this illustration. Imagine with me, you're out in the middle of the ocean, and you're stranded in the middle of the ocean. There's like kind of shark-infested waters. You're in a storm. It's getting to be night, and you realize you can't tread water for much longer. You're not going to be able to make it much longer. And you look and you see 10 meters away, you see a boat in front of you. And maybe for you decide, I'm gonna try to swim to this boat, and I'm gonna swim 5 meters. I'm gonna 5 on the scale. I'm like 5 meters away. My question to you is, are you saved yet? Are you saved? You can answer back. No, why not? Because you're not in the boat. Okay, what if you swim, swim 7 meters, so you're 7 on the scale, and you swim over there, and you're just like, okay, I'm almost there. Question, are you saved? No. Why? Because you're not in the boat. What if you swim all the way to the boat, and you just you even put your hand on the bottom of the boat? Are you saved? No. Why? Because you're not in the boat. You guys are getting it. Listen, the only way for you to be saved is for the person in the boat to pick you up out and put you in the boat. That is the only way for you to be saved. There is no kind of half-heartedness about this. There is no I'm almost there. The question that you have to answer is, have you accepted this free gift of God or not? There are no almost Christians. Because you know what a Christian is? A Christian is a person who has accepted this free gift of God. That does not mean you are perfect. Do you know there are no perfect Christians? If you put your hope in another Christian, they're going to fail you because they're going to mess up. They're going to do something you don't like, and it's going to be bad. Because you are good does not make you a Christian. A forgiven person by God makes you a Christian. And so often there's so many people who want to try to do more and learn more about God, which is all great, but the very foundational aspect of what it means to be a Christian is to answer this question: where do you stand with God? Are you forgiven? Or are you still waiting to make a decision? Because here's the deal. Tonight you could actually go from a 2 on the scale to a 10. You could go from a 5 on the scale to a 10. You could go from a 9 on the scale to a 10. Because either you've been forgiven or you haven't. This is the offer of Jesus. This is what the gospel is. Maybe you've heard this term gospel before. You've heard this, what it means to be a Christian, and it's like the class that you're I don't totally understand what it means, but I'm just going to keep going and I'm going to wait to figure it out. You're at the right place. Because what it means to be a Christian is to be forgiven by God. That's what it means. You don't have to be good enough. You don't have to learn more. You just have to get to a point where you're God, I just can't do this on my own anymore. I can't figure this stuff out. I need you to save me. I'm treading water and I'm about to go under. God, would you rescue me? Would you rescue me? So tonight, you could actually do that. And so my question for you right now is, what is your next step? Maybe for some of you who identified as anything other than a 10 on that scale that I asked you earlier, do you know that tonight you could actually be sure? Tonight you can mark the moment. Tonight could be the best day in your life, because tonight could be the day that you solidify your eternal destination in heaven with God forever. tonight could be the night where you actually begin this journey of discovering joy and purpose and meaning and hope in your life that only God can bring you. Today can be the day. Maybe you're in here today and you've been at church for a long time, and you're a little bit fuzzy about your relationship with God. If someone asks you, like, hey, tell me about when, you began a relationship with God, you'd be like, I kind of grew up in it, maybe. I don't know. Can I just tell you that there has to be a moment. There are no grandfathered in Christians. You don't get to be a Christian because your parents are a Christian. You get to be a Christian because you have accepted Jesus yourself. This is the only way. This is the only way. You will forever be frustrated if you continue to try to do this Christian life without first figuring out this question.